Welcome back. In the prior segment, we discussed Russian meddling and how the Attorney General is instead focusing on probing how the Mueller investigation got started in the first place. Well, my next guest says we need to focus a lot more on increasing our election security to prevent Russians from meddling again in 2020. He's sponsoring a bill that would do just that. It includes upgrading cybersecurity and more. Senator Bob Menendez, he's a Democrat from New Jersey, and he serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, many places to start, but you've been working on legislation relating to election integrity to help us on the statewide level to beef up on national level, but on state by state to beef up so that we can have safe elections in 2020 without interference. We learned this afternoon from the Florida governor that at least 2 election districts were hacked in 2016, and we're seeing rampant evidence here that we're not ready for it come 2020. The Attorney General today, his attention seems to be focused on investigating the investigators into the report. It's like there's a surreal universe right now. We know the train that's coming down the tracks, but there doesn't seem, at least from the White House, any interest in doing anything about it.
Well, Richard, you have it pretty right. The reality is all of our intelligence agencies have made it very clear that this is an ongoing challenge. The Mueller report detailed Russia's attempts to undermine the 2016 presidential elections, and as you cited, got actually into 2 counties in Florida. So, you know, we have seen the handwriting on the wall. We have had the warnings. That's why my legislation is to help gear up our state election systems so that we have accountability and reliability, and are working against these efforts to try to undermine our elections and the faith in our elections, because Russia understands under Putin that if you undermine the faith in American elections, you undermine the very essence of our democracy.
And for further proof of the alternate universe we live in, Putin now praising the Mueller report as exonerating Russia's role in 2016. Next I want to go, you sit on foreign relations. Should we be worried about what seems to be ramping, if not dialogue, even temperatures relating to Iran? I know you have war planning going on where as many as 125,000 troops in one scenario could be going to the Middle East. Have you guys been briefed by anyone as to where we are right now?
No, we haven't been briefed, and I have been demanding briefs as the senior Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and been making the circuit of television shows to make the demand. And just later today I heard that there will be an all-members briefing next week on Iran. I would hope that it would have been this week. You cannot respond to foreign policy challenges, national security questions by flying in the blind. And so that's why we need the critical information, the intelligence, the assessments, how reliable those assessments are, because the last thing we need is another weapons of mass destruction claim as we had in Iraq, and got ourselves into one of the worst military engagements in, I think, U.S. history. I recognize that Iran is a bad actor. It does nefarious things. It's still the single largest sponsor of state terrorism in the world. But I also recognize that the sanctions that we have levied on Iran has its economy teetering. We have an opportunity here, but we're not going to solve that with 120,000 troops. We're going to solve that by a diplomatic surge that brings our European partners and others and says, okay, let's finally get this done, because they're in a tough position. They're going to need to negotiate.
Finally, Senator, I don't know if you got to see the photo that is now making the rounds from McAllen, Texas. At a border crossing area in a detention facility. You have children sleeping on rocks and not even enough blankets to go around. There's reports of tens of thousands of people coming across the border and the Border Patrol not being equipped for it. We're also learning, reportedly, that within the administration, there was an operation they were considering to arrest and try and expedite deportations of parents and children until there was pushback within the administration. Do you know where we are? Do we even have a plan coming from the White House what to do with a worsening situation?
The White House's plan is to create chaos, and in that chaos hope that they get their money for the border wall, hope that they can change our immigration law, asylum laws, and change the whole nature of how one comes legally to this country, much less those who come in an undocumented fashion. The plan should clearly be that we need to get to the root causes of this, which is what we were doing in Central America in trying to strengthen the rule of law and fighting the narco traffickers and fighting the gangs, which are in our own national security interest. And the Northern Triangle Initiative was critical to begin to deal with that issue. And even the State Department under President Trump, Secretary Pompeo, issued a series of certifications to the Congress that the plan was beginning to work. All of a sudden, the president, freezes all the money, says he's going to take it away. Well, all you're doing is exacerbating the problem. That's point number one. Point number two is you need to have a plan, as we are offering as Senate Democrats, where, for example, you can apply for asylum in your country so you don't have to make the dangerous trek to the United States. And if you have a credible fear that you can establish, then you have the opportunity to have asylum in the United States. That would stop an enormous part of the flow as a second element of this. And then lastly, for those who do make the trek, you have to observe U.S. law and international law. And so you have to be ready for that. But the president is exacerbating the problem, not making it better. This is a strategy, but not the type that's going to solve the problem. It's a strategy to create chaos to get his ends.
Senator Menendez, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And coming up next, he may be the most endangered Democratic senator on the ballot next year, but Alabama Senator Doug Jones is also a former U.S. attorney out with a new book about that famous 1960s church bombing with echoes still being felt today. We'll discuss that and today's politics up next.